Okay, council members, item 6, Old Castro Valley Library, report on remodel for Veterans Memorial Library. So it was pretty difficult to do this because we started out by not being able to get access to the building, and then when we did get access to the building, we weren't allowed to go on the roof, which we were pretty adamant about needing to do from day one. And there was certainly some controversy that, with some comments that Supervisor Miley made at an unincorporated services meeting some time ago, where he was trying to fill in for the GSA director who had not shown up for that meeting. And I think some of the things that he stated at that meeting were, either misconstrued or when he said it, it wasn't really etched in stone. I think it's caused a lot of anxiety, especially for the veterans in this community. I know in subsequent conversations that I've had with him that he is not married to the idea of tearing down that library and building something else there. I think the GSA director is pushing for that, and I can, that's pretty obvious with the sort of obstructionist behavior that I ran into on a pretty regular basis in trying to put this together. However, Supervisor Miley was instrumental in his office and his staff in sort of breaking through that log jam so that we could get access to the building. I did go back a second time with some additional contractors because there were some additional things that needed to be looked at. And the task that basically I was provided by the council was to try to show the cost to remodel the building using private dollars. And the reason that this was necessary is because GSA refuses to do a legitimate assessment of the building. Basically what Director Hopkins went to the Board of Supervisors with was information from a redevelopment report that was done in 2010, which Councilmember Tangren and Councilmember Carboni were on redevelopment. Might remember that report at that time. It was $3 million to fix up the building, which actually would pay to tear the building down and rebuild it completely twice. So that's not realistic. So when he went to the when the GSA director went to the Board of Supervisors with that information, and the Board of Supervisors is hearing, oh, we got to put millions of dollars into the Castro Valley Library, clearly that didn't go over too well. But that's simply not the case. The dollars that we're looking at here are certainly within the budget that, we had discussions with the veterans about what they felt they could raise comfortably. And the discussions that I've had with Supervisor Miley about this, about a potential structure going forward, is that the county would basically take care of maybe the outside of the building and the grounds in some sort of a lease with the veterans. And this is just discussion item type situation, because the county hasn't done anything to that building for a decade. They've just let it sit there and rot. So, you've got the roof leaking in some areas, there's dry rot in some areas. It's actually a very well-built building, so it's not going to require that much. So what I did with discussions with the veterans when we went in there is like, what do you folks need to get this building to suitable, use? And there is an asbestos issue. The county had done an asbestos survey on it. And the time delay on this was essentially getting a good asbestos contractor in there to give us a fair and honest price. This asbestos contractor is a veteran. His business is in Concord, and he was very accommodating, and I think his price reflects that as well. So this would take out all of the popcorn ceiling throughout the building. It would essentially gut the bathrooms because there's the sheetrock, but there's also the grout that holds the tile in, has some asbestos in it. And basically everything in the asbestos report, this would remediate all of that. Flooring, I got a couple of different prices. Both of them are in here. One was for carpet tile, which is kind of a deluxe sort of carpet. Another one just, more of a commercial grade. Lighting, had a heck of a time getting an electrician in there, and Finally, just ended up doing an inventory of the lights myself because that's what it was going to take to get it done. I was kind of surprised there's 318 lights in the library. That's just, yeah. But I mean, there's every single light that you can possibly imagine is in that building. So I did inventory all of them. I've given them a pretty generous amount. I did research what replacement fixtures would cost. I think the labor number that I've got in there for the lighting is more than is going to be needed, so that would help pay for like some occupancy sensor switches and some modern things that can be done without busting the budget. Spoke to a couple of local contractors on the bathrooms. Whether the bathrooms would be ADA compliant up to 2018 standards is questionable, but since we wouldn't be changing the use in the building, they don't have to be brought up to that standard. That's as per the building department in this situation. So since the bathrooms would be gutted, I basically put a $10,000 per bathroom budget in there because the flooring bid already includes flooring for the bathrooms, so it would just be sheetrock, you know, whatever tile's going to go in there, and a sink and a toilet. I mean, the bathrooms are not super elaborate, and, you know, grab handles, that sort of thing. The painting bid, I think, is a little on the high side. The painting bid does include, you know, new texture on the ceiling and the walls wherever the popcorn ceiling is going to be removed. And I think this is a little bit higher. I think some more homework would probably get that down. And then the glass is just, you know, I measured every piece of broken glass in the building, and that's what it would cost to replace it from Dublin Glass. Gave me a price on it for glass labor and material. So you can see it comes in at just under $200,000. That's really without any donations of labor and materials, which I'm sure would be forthcoming from contractors and others in this community. And I know that we're just giving this information to the veterans this evening. The way this was structured, I kind of had to bring it back to a MAC meeting before releasing it. And I know that that's probably caused some frustration on the veterans' part, and for that I'm sorry. I would like to have got this to you sooner. So as far as going forward, I think the council, at some point, I think we should make a motion on this. I don't think it needs to be tonight because I'd like to, certainly like to hear from the veterans, and assuming that they may want some time to digest this as far as what next steps might be. Potential next steps, I think, for the council would be to endorse the idea of the county renting the building to the veterans for a very nominal cost, you know, per month, per year. You know, potentially having the veterans take care of the inside of the building while the county takes care of the outside. That was conversations I've had with Mike Martin and others, and I've also had those conversations with Supervisor Miley. If the county went in and redid the roof in the parking lot, that would go a long way towards taking care of the outside. I did get a separate bid on painting that was only $15,000 for the outside of the building. I didn't include that because we'd kind of like to have the county do that if we can, since it's on the outside. So as you can see, and honestly, in private dollars, I'd say the roof would be about $40,000. The parking lot would be $40,000 to $50,000, depending on how much asphalt you got to tear out. And like I said, the painting would be $15,000 for the outside of the building, because there's not a lot of wood to paint. It's mostly, you know, brick. So really $310,000 redoes this whole building. That's 1/10 of what the redevelopment agency was pegging it at, you know, in 2010, I want to say, something like that. The idea the county needs to be, I would assume that the structure is that the county would need to lease this to the veterans, so the veterans have care, custody, and control of the building. Then the work could be done with private dollars. If $1 of county money is used on the inside of this building, then the entire thing has to go through a county process, and we're back to the GSA director stating it's going to cost $3 million, and it may cost $3 million to do $300,000 worth of private work. So I think, yeah, I think that this demonstrates it's doable. And I'll let the veterans speak for themselves, but I know in prior conversations with the veterans, they felt that raising this amount of money was something that was attainable. So either council comments or we can hear from the veterans.
Isn't it 10,000? That building's 10,000 square feet, right?
Yes.
Wow.
The site is an
So you're
acre. The building is 10,000 square feet.
Wow, $35 a square foot? Pretty close, huh?
Well, I mean, well, that wouldn't be including the outside.
Yeah, well, I was going for
Which $35 a square foot, if this was a commercial, lease with a company coming into a shell building, that would be the tenant improvement budget. I mean, the landlord would be giving you $35 a square foot for your tenant improvements. So this is a different animal, but Mike, is there any comment you want to make?
Oh, God, it's falling apart.
Mike Martin, VFW, American Legion, and other sundry things. Thanks for all the efforts that were done, although we were very...
Pull the mic. Pull the mic.
Yeah, there you go.
Here?
Yeah.
I agree with you that the number is totally doable. We all have some experience raising funds before for other veterans projects, so we're good with that. I'd like you to think about whenever you send your report to the Board of Supervisors, could we occupy as is while we're raising the funds? And just put it out there, all right? Because we already have in our minds what the different steps are that we're going to have to do to get us to the endpoint goal. We also would like to ask that our contractor be allowed to go in and take another look at, study your stuff, then go back and take a look, because he hasn't really visually seen the stuff. Because that's where we're going to be able to get the ideas on what you talked about, the in-kind stuff. Because he can help us to identify those things that will be easy to do as in-kind stuff. Because I know, because I've done this before, that we can get in-kind kinds of things, especially for this kind of an improvement project. I think the key is running it up the flagpole. Are we going to get the agreement from the Board of Supervisors based on your proposal, of they're doing the outside and we're going to be doing the inside? And that, to take a lot of action before we get a green light is kind of like spinning your wheels. So you have to tell me more about the process. But I think that, we're ready to rock and roll. We just need a green light, but we need to have a safety net, I guess what you would call it, to understand that, yeah, it's going to happen. You guys just got to go out and do your work. Either take it as is. What kind of a timeline are we going to, if at all, are they going to give us a timeline that we have to have the money during a certain period of time? I know it's going to take some time to do a lease agreement, because that's with GSA. So they'll probably fight that tooth and nail as well. So those are my comments, and I think I speak mostly for the group. Anybody else have a comment? I think we're all in pretty much that the services that we're going to be able to provide, not only to the veteran community of Castro Valley and Hayward, because there are people from our posts that are housed here that come from other areas. And so we're going to be able to service all of that. And we're talking about the benefits, the VA contacts, all those different kinds of things, let alone helping the community, which we already are doing. We're going to use part of that space for storage of stuff that we give to homeless veterans, and when they're trying to set up their little apartments or whatever it happens to be. Thank you. If you could let us know, Mark, about the as-is and when we can coordinate the walkthrough for our contractor.
So I think the conversation, you can stay up there for a second, Mike, in case there's any back and forth. The comment I got from Supervisor Miley when I talked to him about this last was basically the veterans having an entity that would sign the lease. And I don't remember if you folks had that in place already, or...
Don't have that in place, because why are we going to spend any money before we say, yeah, if that's the ground rule, that we need to have the entity in place, a nonprofit, a 501c3, we'll get that done in a heartbeat.
I mean, that is something
Okay.
that can be done very quickly.
Yeah. So that's a non-issue.
Okay. So, you know, I don't think we have an established procedure for this. It's kind of step by step. And I think the next step was basically what you just said, which was let's do it and, you know, figure out what the next steps need to be for each side. And I know Supervisor Miley, you know, is going to need to talk to county staff about it. Certainly there's going to need to be some discussions with GSA, you know. I'm not really worried about getting support from other supervisors. I think that's going to be the easy part, especially now that we're not saying we want millions of dollars. Maybe we need a couple $100,000 for them to fix the building they've neglected for a decade, but I don't think that's an unusual ask in this case. So, yeah, I think you just did the next step, which was, and I just want to make sure that this was just an exercise. I in no way want you to think you have to use anybody in this report. I mean, who you're going to use and how you're going to do it is totally up to you guys. I just felt my job was to show that it was attainable, you know, with written bids, you know, with some logic to it, not, you know, hiring some consultant to put out a report that, you know, is a guess at everything.
And we appreciate that. Now, all we want to do is validate and to make sure, and then start going after our resources, because, again, the veterans community is huge, and they all want to help each other. And in that pocket, we got guys that are the architects, the contractors, but they're not only here in Castro Valley, they're in other areas, and they would be willing to help us. And I've already worked with some of those folks in other areas where projects are already completed and new projects are happening right now as we speak. So the Occupy As Is, I'll throw another air ball out there since I'm a sales guy. What, you know, if we finally validate the dollars, and you've got a number here, would the county consider giving the money out ahead of time and let us pay them back?
Money out ahead of time.
The whatever the money to fix the 200,000.
Well, that's the problem. Now it's if you touch any public money, now it's got to go through the
It
county's
goes to bid.
process.
You don't
Yeah,
want
it
to
goes
do
to-
that.
Yeah, you've
I'm just asking
contaminated.
a question.
You've
Yeah.
contaminated the process at that
Yeah.
point,
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm just asking the question.
and there's no fixing it. If just $1
Now, we would
gets
still
used.
we would pay all the money back, but that
It's still
It'd be
yeah.
county. You don't
can't
wanna-
do
you
it.
don't wanna
Okay,
do
Yeah.
that.
I don't know
Yeah.
the process.
Yeah.
That is the legal requirement that they need to go out to bid.
Okay, no
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
I had to ask.
Yeah.
No,
No
it's
harm in
fine.
asking.
Slap me upside the head. If I'm a sales guy, you know, if you don't
So-
ask, you don't get.
So I think the only comment that I've heard, and I think this came from county council, the idea of occupying as is the asbestos that's there now. And the concern, I think the county council, I don't want to put words in their mouth, but I think county council or maybe even GSA came to the conclusion that they would not allow anybody to occupy the building with the existing asbestos situation. Because the
So then-
ceiling, the entire ceiling is friable, you know, so.
Okay, so if we come up with a solution to that prior, if that can be prioritized as one of the first things that we do, then we can move in.
It's certainly something we can bring
That
up
is,
and
if
talk
that
about.
is the only restriction that they have put out there, is the asbestos?
That's just one of the comments I heard. I mean, I think if you give them time, they'll probably come up with more,
I'm
but,
sure if we give them too much time.
you know, it's, you know,
I'm just trying to think, I think the priority for all the veterans, especially our homegrown guys, is we want to be in there sooner than later.
right.
Okay, and if that message can be taken forward and work out whatever details we need to do, you know, with asbestos first, you know, flooring next, painting next, electrical last, you know, whatever way we want to prioritize them, you know, we can get our teams working together to do what we got to do.
Okay.
And I know that a lot of folks in the community are already, you know, want to hear the positive news from us as well.
I think, Mike, I would go get my 501c immediately. Then I would go get some GoFund accounts and I would start raising money, because money is what's going to make this thing happen quickly. The county's not going to give you any money. You don't want the money from the county. And so it's going to have to be internally funded, and it needs to be rolling yesterday if you really want to get in there quickly. And if you raise a couple $100,000 and something falls apart, you got a couple $100,000 in the bank. Nothing wrong with that.
The organization that is
That's
doing
what
the
I'm saying.
fundraising would have it,
Right.
but the organization we're going to put together is being put together for the sole purpose of the saving and restoration of the old Castro Valley Library.
Absolutely. There's no
That's
doubt
what
about
it's
it.
that's what it's all about. That's why we want to feel a little bit of, yeah, you know, you're 95% there. We just got to work out the details. If you can let us know that, I think we'll feel a lot more comfortable going out and doing the. I mean, it's going to cost us money just to do the 501c3.
I haven't heard one person ever say that they did not want this to be a veterans hall. So you've heard the community, you've heard this board, everybody wants to see it happen. So, but there's a process, and that's
We
that's raising
understand that.
money.
Yeah, we're frustrated, but that's, you know, veterans are always in a. You've heard this, guys? Hurry up and wait. Hurry up and wait. Double time, get in line and wait. And we may wait for a long time to get something done, but we're always ready to go double time.
Well, I think next step would be to meet with the supervisor and try to set up a timeline, you know, with you guys and county staff and what the steps are going to be moving forward, and try to put timelines to those. And honestly, the MAC can be as involved or not involved in that as you want. You know, we're here to assist if you want, but I don't want you guys to feel at any time that we're trying to hijack the process, you know.
I think we're okay with that. Bob, when can you get us an appointment? There we go.
So I understand that you want to self-perform on a lot of these tasks when you can, but I would
Once we understand exactly what needs to be done, if we can find an internal veterans resource or somebody that is willing to commit to us.
I just want to caution you on the asbestos abatement. You need to go through a licensed asbestos mitigation
Understood.
contractor.
That's already understood.
Okay.
Now, anybody that we're going to use is going to be licensed. As you know, no problem. We got too many people, you know, in the background telling us what to do.
I think there's going to be a county process for that as well. I mean, since GSA is still going to essentially be the
Right.
owner of the building, I'm sure they're going to have their own process for, I don't think it's going to be like a building permit essentially, but, you know, they'll have some sort of process for inspections, quality control, you know, compliance, that sort of
As soon
thing.
as we can get those check marks done, I mean, we use the word gouge in the military. It's a list. You create a list and you start making the check marks to get things done. And that's what we want to do. We want to take action on the list. So thank you very much.
I just have a short thing.
Yeah, that's fine.
Those of you who
Can
don't
you
know
state your
me-
name, sir?
Oh, my name is Casey Warner. Casey K. Warner, but I'll go by Casey. So I'm been a resident of Castro Valley since 1963 and all that good stuff. I just wanted to, we've been doing this petition. We have over 300 signatures right now, but we haven't really actually gone into the neighborhood to walk the beat. This is mostly from the barbershop, the restaurants, and we'll be doing more of a full drive in Castro Valley Fall Festival. So I just wanted to give you guys a copy of what we're doing. So that's it.
Okay. Yeah, I'll be honest. I think my opinion on that is I think you're wasting your time on it. Yeah, we're trying to convince the supervisor of this is not the problem. We're past that. So, yeah, I think this is more of a doomsday, you know, kind of approach that just isn't, it's just not necessary.
However, you could use this list as a fundraising tool also.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Main reason that I brought this up is because the comment that was made in the forum, which I also sent a rebuttal in, and I was very upset In fact, it took me about 3 days to calm down before I sat down to write the rebuttal. So I just wanted you to know.
Thank you.
Hi, you've already got my card.
Yep.
So a couple things. First off, I think that there's a whole lot of community support for this. And to build on part of what was touched on, you guys are going to have a booth at the Fall Festival. I think that it would be worthwhile to start the ball rolling on getting your 501c3 now, regardless. It doesn't cost a whole lot of money. I've done it. It's not too tough. Start filing it. Get that ready. And then at the Fall Festival, during your booth, that could be the focus. One of the main focus things of your booth is you can get people to commit to the money so that later when you're 501c3, you can call them back up to get that. And, hey, we've done this. Hey, you know, and nothing's to prevent you from giving more. I think there's a lot of community support for this. I think it's a great thing as a non-affiliated person. I think it's a great thing. I'm really happy that the library is going to be repurposed to something like this because I think it's one of the coolest buildings in town. And then based on the estimates that you supplied, Mark, I didn't see anything in there about HVAC was one of the things I was worried about because that was one of the major cost things before. I don't know how much that has to be done or what can be, you know, that was something that was consideration.
County's own report in 2014 said that the HVAC was in good condition.
I know there was a second one that actually said something about replacing it too. So that's why I just wanted to, I mean.
All of the systems that the county looked at in 2014, they said were in excellent condition, but it would be better to have a more efficient system and spend millions of dollars to get there, so.
Perfect. All right. Yeah, I think it's great. And I really think that this is something that the community would get behind, and I think it'd be an easy way of getting support. The community can help pay for it. So, again, thanks.
Other thoughts?
Well, just I'm going to piggyback on his comment about the Fall Festival that was already part of the plan. There will be billboards there. There will be petitions. There will be boxes for fundraising. All of those things will be there at both the VFW and the American Legion tents. So we'll be there at both locations. Please stop by and see us.
We will.
Mark, I just want to say thank you for doing this because I know you were quite floored with what GSA came up with, and for you to take your time in getting this to move this to where it is today. Thank you very much.
Yeah, had I known what it was going to take, I'm not sure I would have volunteered. I was not expecting the obstruction from the county that we ran into, but we did get through that. Bob, come on up.
Bob Swanson, Castro Valley resident, Vietnam vet, and Supervisor Miley's asked me to work with the veteran community on this issue. And for myself personally, that library got me through college, and it's a historical monument as far as I'm concerned, and I want to see it preserved. That's my personal opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. So, council members, I don't know if we need a motion at this point. I know the supervisor would like a motion from us at some point to assist him in moving this forward, but that could always be something that we bring back at a later date when we have more information. So,
Mark, how much more information are you looking for, and what would be a later date?
You know,
I'm not saying that we can't make a motion tonight. I'm just saying we don't have to.
we can add to the conditions of add just a segment to the motion, just that we need to continue to look at this. But I mean, the numbers you brought to the table are so more than reasonable, and I think it's attainable. Even at another $200,000 or $300,000 by the time this thing is said and done, I still don't think that's out of reach. Maybe we can find some way of getting this to move forward when we make a motion. I'm just not sure how it should be crafted and leave it kind of open-ended, but at least let the supervisor know that we're kind of on board with this and supporting the.
We made a motion some time ago to move forward on this. We're just reiterating the motion that was made by the group.
were told something completely different at that time.
Well, yeah, I think what the motion that we made at that time was more about, you know, supporting the reuse of the building for the veterans. You know, this is a little bit more specific at this point in time. I think it, let me take a stab at a draft motion. You can tell me what you think about it. With the information that we have now, that the council would motion to approve the veterans and the county entering into a lease agreement with terms to be determined by the parties that would have the county maintaining the outside of the building, which I think is critical, and the veterans maintaining the inside of the building, and that both groups take the necessary steps to towards that goal at this point in time.
Second it.
Does that work?
So I would just friendly amendment
Sure.
That the county takes care of the outside building and associated lands.
And grounds,
and
sure.
grounds.
Sure. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries 7-0.
Perfect.